this frequency in use? I repeat, is this frequency in use?
WA0 SDO repeater. Spark repeater net each Sunday evening at 8 p.m.
Nothing heard. This is Brett, W0VK, and just want to talk to everybody tonight and just kind of have a good time. Looking forward to having a rag-chew kind of around the existence of the club, and to recognize and celebrate the 85th birthday of the Sedalia Amateur Radio Club. I know there's Pettis in there, but I mean just the existence of the club here, the local club. We'd just like to say good evening to everybody, all listening stations, and would like to share that, you know, my gratitude and privilege to, you know, be the current president of the Sedalia Pettis Amateur Radio Club, and you know it's been a great few months since my existence on the board, and have been a member for 8 years. Would just like to take a little bit of time tonight to just reach out to the other individuals. We've got a lot of wisdom. This club has been around a long time, and I know we've had folks that have you know, come and gone, and we've got some the standbys that have been there for a very long time, and we'd just like to take the opportunity tonight to just give folks a little bit of time and an opportunity to just reflect back on some of the old days and the things they remember and the things that you think about on the Sedalia Club, and things that bring a smile to your face from time to time. You know, I know the club has not always had this exact name. It has changed a little bit, and hopefully we'll have some folks that can kind of remember some of the details of that, and some of the details of some of the past presidents and meeting locations and things like that you know, that are just interesting, you know, to see where the club's gone and kind of the progression of where it's at now. And you know, I'm sure for a club to exist as long as this, it's had to have some good key individuals in it, that is for sure, but it's also had to have good structure. And you know, you have the structure, and you have the individuals with the passion to carry on you know, the ham radio, the communications that we do every day. It just really makes it fun, and I'd just like to tell everybody that everybody that is listening, all listening stations, I'd like for you to feel very free to check in. I am going to do a little bit of a priority at the beginning, just to give the folks that have been around the club the longest an opportunity to get in there first, and just kind of share their stuff, and then we'll go down as far as you know, the newer hams. We'll check in a little later after we've given the more experienced folks and the folks that have been around longer the first opportunity. And I'll probably start with if you've been a ham or been affiliated with the club in any way somewhere over 15 years. You don't have to be a continual member this entire time. If you have, please share that. But if you've been around the club, been affiliated from, you know, in Sedalia, and you know, talk on the radio, you know, I got I was kind of born into CB radio, and you know, my dad had the Browning and Golden Eagle and the Mako 750 Lanier, and had all the stuff, and I've got pictures here, and it's fun to reflect back to it. And you know, I mean, it's not 100% ham radio, but well, it's nothing ham radio, but it's, you know, it's radio and it's communications. And you know, when ham radio started, you know, a lot in that time, in that frame of just communications, and then you want to do a little bit more, and you want more allocations and things like that, and so it gives folks a reason to upgrade. So anyway, just hopefully we can have a good time tonight, and this meeting is not about me, and hopefully we'll just kind of see where it goes tonight. But we're going to start off with the first check-ins. If you've been affiliated around Sedalia and radio communications for over 15 years, then we'll go to 10 years and over, and then we'll open it up to everybody else. But at this time, I'm gonna take the back seat, and hopefully we'll let a few others take over. I will check in, and then we'll turn you loose, and hopefully you'll have some stories and things like that to share. So it's my privilege tonight to be part of this event and to be celebrating this 85th birthday here. So if you have been around for over 15 years or more, please check in now. Call W0VK.
0VK, this is N0WZ, Mark in Sedalia.
KY0P, Dennis in Sedalia.
Okay. Well, Mark, I certainly appreciate you being around and being here. I'm going to turn it over to you for a little while, and then we'll go to Dennis, and then we will poll again for anybody else that's been around. So, Mark, take it away. W0VK. Mark, I'm not hearing a transmission from you. Give it another shot. N0WZ, please call W0VK.
All right, let's try that. There were 3 club names for the current ham club. The first one was from 35 to 76, and that was the Amateur Radio Club of Central Missouri. The second one was from 76 to 96, which was the Sedalia Amateur Repeater Association, or AKA Sarah. And then from 76 to present was the Sedalia Pettis Amateur Radio Club, which is the current Spark Club. That particular deal is my trivia for the night. I basically started in it's either 95 or 96, I forget now, as a club member, so I've been around since then. I think Dennis maybe has started just a little before I did. And it's depressing realizing that he and I apparently are the only ones that's been around that long that's left. So with that, that's all I've got. Just thought I'd throw that in there and wish the club a happy birthday. W0VK in the group, this is N0WZ.
WA0 SDO repeater.
All right, Mark. Well, that's good. I knew there were some other names, but was not for sure. No, thank you for letting us know that for sure. Mark, do you recall, has the repeater always been on that tower, or has it been in different locations? As far as you know.
The original location, and Dennis, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the original location for the repeater was on the old cable TV tower out there on Sacagawea Road. And then at, I forget now, it might have been in, I forget the actual date when it was moved from there to the tower out there by the old Howard Construction Company building, where the new EMA office is going to be.
Okay, well, you know, that just kind of came to mind when we were talking about it. So, all right, well, we'll just thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. N0WZ. Feel free to hop back in here anytime, as this will be a Rag-Chew as we go. Dennis, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to you, my friend, and let us know what's been going on.
Well, thank you, Brett. Good evening, and good evening to everybody else. Right now, I'm on my handheld. I just now picked up our dog at the groomer, and so this first round I'll be on my handy-talkie, but I'm not sure whether Mark was a member when I started or vice versa, but I got licensed in 1995 and immediately became a member of the Spark Club, and at that time we met in what's now Central Bank at 14th and Limit in the basement, and everybody there, it seemed like, was a lot older than I was, and what we'd do, we'd have a few people there for the meeting, and then we would go over to Hardee's afterwards and drink coffee, and I think that was the big event back there with the older hams, was the fact that they could go out to sorry, did I time it out?
You're good. No, you're real good. Everything's rolling. Keep on.
Okay. Well, the big thing then was going over to Hardee's for coffee afterwards, and that's where a lot of the decisions were made with the club. But in response to the repeater site, Mark, you are correct. It was on the cable tower south of town. And then at some point, when it went up on the current tower, the club had paid Steve from Centracom for the unit, and once he got it installed, he refunded that money back to the club. I'll never forget that. That was a wonderful thing for him to do. He was not a member of the club. He was not even a ham at the time. So, hey, I'll turn it back over to you, and in the next round I'll come up with some names from the past. So, KY0P, back to you, Brett.
All right, KY0P, thank you, Dennis, and look forward to talking to you a little bit more here, so stay tuned for sure. Any other check-ins from folks around the Sedalia area that would like to check in that has been affiliated with radio for over 15 years, 15 or more years? Please check in now.
Recheck.
Mark, go ahead.
Something I forgot to mention, Brett, was that when Jim Keck, W0FRX, first went into the nursing home, about 2 or 3 months ahead of that, he gave me a book that he had started some time back that has a lot of, it was basically kind of a history of the, what his recollections were of the ham club. And the next time we have a face-to-face meeting, I will bring that and give that to the club. I've had it, and it kept getting moved around, and I lost track of it, and I found it the other day. So I just wanted to pass that information along. This is N0WZ.
0WZ, W0VK. All right, Mark, that sounds great. You know, and I remember Jim whenever I first joined, and very nice man, and enjoyed him a lot. I will make a note of that. Just so you know, the goal is to have the next meeting in person, but we're going to have it at a shelter house, probably at one of the churches. We haven't 100% finalized it, but that's going to be probably what we're going to do, somewhere where we can all have our distance and everything. But no, that will be great addition to the club, and thank you for having that and offering that to us. So any other check-ins 15 years or more?
Kilo Echo Zero, Quebec Yankee Alpha, with a long-distance third-party check-in.
Okay, Richard, go ahead.
Go ahead, Philip.
Hi, this is KJ5ZW, and I was a member of 2005 when we moved up to Sedalia from Wheatland, and Jim Keck and I used to talk, and I've been by his house 2 or 3 times, and that was exciting to know that the club now has an 85-year anniversary, and I'm happy to check in long distance to get into this net. So I'll turn it back over to Richard and Net Control, KJ5ZW. Back to you.
Okay there. Well, thank you. Thank you, Philip, for coming in third party from Texas there, and thank you, Richard, for relaying him in. That was fun, and Philip, you're welcome to be in there and join the meeting there anytime and any way. So that was really cool. So we appreciate that. All right, moving on to 10 years and over. Anybody 10 years and over that's been affiliated with radio here in Sedalia, please check in now.
K0 TV.
WB0 LRX.
KD0 ETL.
All right, we got a good run there. And got K0 TV, WB0 LRX, and KD0 ETL. We'll go up to the top here with Harry. And Harry, what kind of information do you have to share about the club and in celebration of this wonderful day of 85 years for this existence?
Well, Brett, I thought you were bracketing things by years in the club, but then you started saying years in radio. When I was in high school, I built a 200-watt single sideband transceiver for when I was in the Civil Air Patrol, but I had kind of an early start in radio. Didn't get a start in amateur radio, though, until like 95 or so. But I didn't move to Sedalia and join the club. I was looking for a club and didn't see anything around. And then there was an ad in the paper said there was going to be an amateur radio club meeting, and so I went to it. And I can't remember if it was Mark or Paul, but I was in charge of the group at the time. Met down at the EOC, as I recall, and that was my first experience. But that was 14 years ago, so that fell underneath your bar there, Brett. But don't have the longevity of a lot of people, but did know Jim Keck.
WA0 SDO repeater.
And another link there. I'm a caregiver for a parent. She's 99 years old, and she and Jim Keck graduated from high school together. So do have kind of a link back to, in a very remote way, to 1935 when I guess that didn't go back that far, but the early days of the club. But that's kind of my recollection there too. I'm anxious to see the book that Mark has. That'd be a good thing to put in our archives here. But congratulations to the club for 85 years. K0 TV.
All right, Harry. Yeah, glad to have you checked in, and yeah, you know, I mean, it's about communications, it's about radio. Of course, it's about celebrating the club. But yeah, share your information of your your radio experience. That's what this is about. And we're we're not picky. We like people that like to be on the radios and like to talk. So thank you for your comments, and come back and join in any other time on tonight when you see fit. Please do. All right, Harry, we'll let you go, and we're moving on now to Jeff, KB0LRX. And I know, Jeff, you've been around a long time. Talk to us a little bit about the progression and things you've seen. W0VK.
W0VK, WB0LRX. Sorry, I didn't let that drop long enough. Sorry. I'm not the best at recollection, but I suppose I recollect a few things. I got my ham license in '72. I didn't live in Sedalia at the time. Moved to Sedalia somewhere around 1980, something like that. And I don't know what year I became affiliated, first went to a meeting, but it was back in there somewhere. I remember doing a lot of things with Greg, W0ENW. I used to want to help out with the repeater back in those days. I still want to help out, but I mean, I took a very active role in those days. And one of the things that I'd get called in on was troubleshooting. And I remember one time when there'd been a near lightning hit at the tower. This is when it was on the cable TV tower, and the phone patch wouldn't work. Back in those days, phone patch was a big thing. People didn't have a lot of cell phones. This back in the 80s sometime. And it was a big thing to have a phone patch, for emergency use. So let me let it reset. At any rate, it wouldn't work. The line was busy all the time. So we went out there, and I'll shorten this as short as I can, but basically we had checked the line to the building, and it was okay, but when you connected the repeater, the line was busy. And, so the first thought is that the repeater was fried or something, but long story short, it turned out to be something neither Greg or I imagined, but the telephone jack that the repeater plugged into, the jack itself, the plastic plate that had the little metal contacts and that you plugged the phone cord into, had been turned into a battery. You could remove, unhook with no wires whatsoever hooked to it, just the phone jack laying on the workbench. You could hook a voltmeter to it, and I think it read like 1.7 or 8 volts, and you could short it out, and its voltage would go down to 0, and you could unshort it, and the voltage would come back up. So it wasn't a capacitor, it was a battery. Something had happened to the metal or the plastic and made it all into a dielectric of a battery of some type. So replaced the phone jack, everything worked. So craziest thing I ever saw. Never forgot that. It wasn't something you had thought to look for. We were running a lot of tests, and that was not something we were testing for. Back to you, Brett. Good evening to everybody, too. It's a good group on here. 85 years is a long time. WB0LRX.
Yeah, WB0LRX, W0VK. Those little things, those little odd deals are the things that stick out in your mind the most and the things you remember. If it had been something simple, it probably wouldn't even have stuck around, and it wouldn't have been so memorable. But yeah, that's neat, and it's really neat to back in the 70s. Did you say around 76 was the time frame whenever you were probably getting affiliated around here?
I'm sure I was talking to people around here in 76. Actually, even earlier than that, I was talking to Jim Keck and Garnet, W0AZL, who some of you may remember, and Ben, whose call sign eludes me, but he was a dentist. But it was something like 79 or 80 when I actually moved to Sedalia, so it would have been probably around then that I might have become a member or something like that. But I was talking to people down here, and back in those days, I don't think there was a Sedalia repeater at that time. We were mostly on 88 in Warrensburg.
Okay, yeah, that's neat. Something just came to my mind, when we were talking here, and something that I have run across with every person that's been affiliated with ham radio for very long in Sedalia. I mean, with very much time, everybody happens to say the name Jim Keck. And so it's pretty neat the impression that he made on ham radio folks around here, and we miss him, and I didn't know him near like you guys did, and I got in on the tail end of it just before he ended up moving over there to Illinois. But anyway, that's I look forward to hearing more stories about him as we go on today. But no, Jeff, that's cool, and just to see the progression of it. And while I got you on here, when did you set up the 220 machine out there and kind of get that rolling?
I will try to look that up and see what I can come up with. It wasn't actually me that started the 220 machine. I've just been taking care of it for a long time and helping, but John N0EE had a lot to do with that, and the first generation of it he was involved in. If he's on tonight, he could say the year. One other thing I'll say here, I don't want to monopolize it, but you mentioned Jim. Jim was a good friend of mine, and I certainly miss him. I remember clearly and dearly going over in one of the earlier generations of the 220 machine. The 2-meter repeater had Kendacom transmitter and receiver, so I got it into my head that, well, that'd be a good brand to buy. So I bought I didn't buy a complete repeater, but I bought a Kendacom transmitter and a Kendacom receiver module for 220. And I remember a couple of nights over at Jim's workshop, down in his workshop, and him assisting me and with the use of his tools and helping me to do it properly, and drilling holes, mounting switches, mounting meters, wiring the thing up a little bit. One of the very early generations of the 220 repeater. And one thing about Jim, he was very fastidious. Every tool had a place, and the tool would be in its place. And if you used the tool, the tool needed to be back in its place. And he was very nice about it. He didn't make me feel bad in the least. But unlike my workbench, where I use a tool and I lay the tool down, and I get the next tool and I lay that tool down, things went a little differently over there. And it was a very clean work area, really clean work area. But the end result was great. Better pass it around, Brett. WBs are all around.
Hi, well, Jeff, we appreciate you sharing that information. It sounds like your workbench ends up like mine a lot of times there. So good to hear it, and come back and join us here as we go here. So any other folks that are, I'm going to hop on with Paul. Sorry. Paul, KD0ETL. Talk to us a little bit about the things you've seen and the progression you see in the club. You are the past president and been around a long time and been a leader here and had a lot of leadership here in the club. And so just talk to us. W0VK.
WA0 SDO repeater.
W0VK in the net, KD0ETL. Good evening, everyone, and happy 85th anniversary for the club in this area. And hopefully all the present and past club members are listening. I believe that the past club members are also listening. So, Jim Keck, before I started into ham radio, I did the CB thing in mid-70s there, and at the time I was also working at Radio Shack, so I sold a lot of CBs and antennas, installed a lot. And there was also a amateur radio. I always had a scanner going and listened to the amateur radio frequency, and also listened to some HF frequencies also. And about 1979, same year that I started fire department after Radio Shack, I went to a class on amateur radio, and Jeff, if the call you gave for Greg, you didn't say the last name, was it Greg Hibbard?
Yes, it was.
I assumed it was. So he was teaching his class, and I started in it, and didn't get too far, got too busy with fire department stuff, and different hours, this and that, and wasn't able to go, so that kind of dropped, and so it was 2008 before I got my first ticket. I'll let it drop again. It was very shortly after that time, we were having our meetings at the time, either in the basement of the sheriff's office where EMA is at presently, or on the nights that I worked at the firehouse, they were nice enough to come to the firehouse, and that was when it was on Hancock, 6th and Hancock. So that one night, there was only, I think, it was only maybe a handful, 5 or 6 that were there, and they decided that Brooks and I were going to be the new president and vice president. So that's how I got involved in it so early, and I enjoyed it very much. Another thing, I'll let it drop again. Greg Hibbard was a preacher at church on 32nd Street, and not the one where we had past meetings, but a different one, close to the Skyline School. And when I got into fire service, he was always there working Red Cross. He'd bring out coffee and donuts, and depending on the incident, other food and cigarettes for some of the guys that smoke. So he was always getting cigarettes bummed from him. But his nickname was Pastor Disaster, and if you knew him, you know it fit. So everybody in the fire service pretty much got a second name, so that stuck. So, and I'm sure he had that before I knew him also. So anyway, that's my story, and I enjoyed every bit of being president before, and continue to help in whatever I can with the club. Back to net, KD0ETL.
0ETL, W0VK. Yeah, Paul, that sounds good. And yeah, those nicknames, they always have a little ring to them, and good to hear. And I liked how you all just did a takeover and decided, well, you know, I'm gonna be president and vice president and do it. You know, that type of initiative, though, is what keeps things going, and part of the reason why things don't fizzle out. You know, and so those are steps that work. You know, and that's great. All right, moving on. Anybody else that'd like to check in? 10 years or in Sedalia, affiliated with radio, the club, please check in now. Call W0VK.
Recheck.
Okay, go recheck.
Yeah, this is 0WZ. KY0P, if you're still listening or can comment. You remember when old East Northwest used to come down to the EOC during the storms, and he always had that little tiny, he had built a lightning detector. And the first thing he'd do when he'd walk in down there during storms is drag out that lightning detector and set it where he could keep an eye on it all the time.
KY0P. Yeah, I remember that very well. I sure do. Yeah, Greg was responsible. He was the person who, on his own, set off the sirens for the tornado that hit May 4th, 1977. He took it upon himself to do that, and that probably saved lots of lives. But, yeah, he was the Pastor Disaster, and also he went by anytime he would check in anywhere, it would be W0 East Northwest. So, and he died unexpectedly of a heart attack at a very young, well, he was probably in his mid-60s, which to me is young anymore. But yeah, I remember his lightning detector. It was very unique, and it was pretty accurate. It actually sat there right there on the desk, and activated each time there was lightning in the area. So back to you, Greg. Sorry, back to you, Brett. KY0P.
And he sounds like quite the guy. He really does, and would have enjoyed hanging out with him and talking to him. Sounds like a good time, and you know, that's what makes this stuff fun, is reminiscing about the old times. And you know, we don't have characters like we used to, you know. And this guy sounds like a real character, so would have enjoyed meeting him. All right, opening it back up for check-ins. Just any check-in anywhere, any desire to check in to the 85th birthday Ragchu in Sedalia, Missouri. Please call Net Control W0VK.
W0VK, KD02, please.
VK, 80VD.
KE0QYA.
KD0OPS.
Well, we got a really nice run there, and just would like to start off with the top. We got KD0PS, KE0QYA, AD0VD, and KD0CNC. Rick, what do you know this evening, and thanks for joining the net.
W0VK, KD0CNC. Good afternoon, Brett and everybody. I just wanted to get on here and say congratulations to everybody, and I have got to do a chore here in a little bit, so I've been kind of hanging around to check in. Sound like you got a good net. Hope everybody has a great week, and I'm going to send it back to you, Brett. W0VK, KD0CNC.
Right. Well, thank you, Rick. We always enjoy you being part of the club and joining in anytime you can, and thank you much for the good wishes there. So, same back to you. KD0CNC, W0VK. All right, Donald. I know you got some stories, Donald, so let's get us smiling if you can. Please do. W0VK.
WA0 SDO repeater.
You're going to get people that don't know me thinking there's something weird out there. I'm not weird, the rest of the world is. No, I got into the CB probably about the time your dad did. Somewhere around 72, 73, and I ran it clear up into the mid-80s. Sometimes it ran me. And as far as legal, if you call 1,500 watts legal, I was perfectly legal. I talked to Germany off from it. Then I got into electronics, and to pass one, well, it was a quarter of the electronics school without taking a test at the school, you had to get your FCC radio telephone license. That's the license that you had to have to work in radio, commercial radio. I got the third and the second, and I had the second up until they eliminated the second, and everybody that had them was granted a lifetime general radio telephone license. They did that because we studied both tubes and TTL. After that, I got totally out of radio up until about 09, and a guy I knew there, he said, well, I think you could probably pass the ham technician class. I just let it roll off my back, and in 16, I decided, got a little irritated at him, so I got my ham license. And you know the rest, how I progressed, you know, from nothing to the extra class license, and I've had quite a bit of fun on it since 16.
You know, I mean, and that's what I see a lot of times is the progression. You know, it starts off with what you got or what's popular around you, and your family or your friends have, and at that time, and And in the early to mid-'70s, CB was the deal. And, we're not just talking about mobile rigs. We're talking about base stations that talked. And that's pretty neat to see how a lot of people start there and then progress into the more allocations and the band plans and the formalities a little bit, and it's really neat to see that. And that commercial license is pretty neat as well, to just see how all that went. And so anyway, Donald, thank you very much for your information there. And I know you've been a big part of the club there, and you do a lot of VE testing and have been a delight to have down here. So we're glad you moved from Kansas City down here to Sedalia, my friend. So we'll end with you, Donald, and move over to Richard, KE0QIA. Let's go, Richard.
Good evening, Brett, and everybody on the net. Got a real good net going tonight. It's been fun listening to some stories. Some of our older members, well, I can't say old, so I'm old, I'm 60. Some of the members that have been in there longer than I have definitely talked about tonight. No, I just kind of wanted to hop in here and say it's definitely in my honor to be vice president this year. I know we've had a little bit extenuating circumstances, but things will get back to normal soon, and we can all get together and kind of enjoy each other's fellowship. So we kind of want everybody to hang in there, and on my end, it's like I say, it's just great to be around for the 85th anniversary of Spark. And Brett, we're going to definitely turn her back over to you. So everybody take care. We'll be listening for the duration. 73s, so this will be KE0QIA. We'll take her back to net control.
Recheck.
Right, go recheck.
Net control, permission to contact KE0QIA.
You bet. This is a Reg 2. Let's do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Richard, is Philip still listening?
No, he had to get out of there, but I tell you what, after I kind of held the mic up to the phone, and I tell you what, he was just so tickled to death to where he could check into the anniversary net. But no, he's not listening now. I don't know if we'll have it on our website if anybody's recording it. Hopefully they will, but no, he's gone by now.
Okay, well, I'll text him or call him or something later. It's good to hear him. I meant to say something. I got sidetracked on my speechifying. So, thanks, Net Control, KD0ETL. Back to that.
KD0ETL, KE0QI. Thank you, guys, and hop back in here anytime. We'll keep this thing rolling. But until then, I'm moving on to Darren, KD0OPS. Darren, share some information since you've been around. W0VK.
Well, I can talk a little bit more. My first recollection of the club is when I came to Sedalia. I was trying to get a ham radio license. I'd always been interested in it. Been interested in it since the 90s. All the way through high school, but 93 went into the military and radio operator in the military, and continued that, and was a faithful subscriber to the ARRL. Used to receive all the books, but just couldn't talk on the radio. But I'm gonna let it drop. And I had sent several emails and tried getting a hold of people, and he finally got a hold of me a little while later, and kind of elmered me and got me into it, and I did all the studying on my own, just asked a few questions, and went up there to Warrensburg, took some classes, and passed my technician, and I was grinning from ear to ear. And then a little while after that, I encouraged my wife to get hers, and she had been studying off and on for quite a while, and she finally got hers a couple of years after I got mine, and about that same time I thought I'd try for the general, and took the general test and got that. So yeah, I've been involved in radio for, I don't know, what I feel is quite a long time, and even before the high school days, you know, running around with CB radios and doing all the things you shouldn't be doing. I've just been involved in it ever since then. You know, everything from experimenting with antennas to tinkering with electronics, but I'll let it drop. I could say I guess one thing out of ham radio is I really enjoy the camaraderie amongst the people, willing to help each other out, and I don't know, the general mentality of the people that you don't get with other type of clubs, and the willingness to help and be helped, and there's just been a lot involved with my progression in the radio hobby, and I am glad I live in Sedalia, and I am part of this club. It's helped me out several times, and really enjoy the people in it. Well, Brett, I'm going to turn it back to you. That's about as long as I can talk. KD0OPS, back to Matt.
All right, Darren. Well, I tell you what, we're glad to have you too, and have you part of our club. You know, you do a lot of contributions to our club, Darren, and don't think they don't go unrecognized, because they do. And you've helped out with a lot of things, a lot of training, putting in those classes. Anybody that's been affiliated with putting on a class, let alone heading it up and running it from start to finish, knows that it's a lot of work, and that is a big deal that our club, a service that our club offers to the community and folks, and you lead that and do an outstanding job with that, as well as, you know, helping with our Facebook page and helping with a lot of our website and a lot of little technical things that we've, you know, had, you know, going on there, and just want you to know that we're glad you're here too. So I enjoy that. All right, folks. Well, anybody, anywhere, radio related, wanting to hop in here on the 85th birthday Rag2 Nat, please come now. Call W0VK.
N0EE. Sorry, but I'm late. F0SJG.
W3MEB.
We got a nice run there. I might have had a double up front there. If I don't call your name and you tried to check in, I want to get you here, because I want you to be part of this group here. So I'm gonna start off at the bottom. W3MEB Mark, KF0SJG Steve, and John N0EE. And the other one I was thinking was Bob CYR, but I might have missed you. Please come now.
Yes, that was me, KE0CYR. I'm getting in here a little late. I ended up taking a nap and didn't wake up. It's my fault.
All right, Bob, we'll just hang in there, and we'll be back to talk to you here in just a few. But we're going to start up at the top of the list here and let John have it for a little while. I know John's been around for a long time here in Sedalia, and has forgot a lot more about radio than I'll probably ever know. So I just like to turn it over to you, John, and take her away. W0VK.
Okay, Brett, this might take a little bit here. I've been jotting notes down. As the companies show up unexpectedly, so I've been sitting here multitasking and taking some notes like they do on AM radio when they key her down and talk for 10 minutes. And you go back and reply to everything everybody else says. So let me reset here. course, the club was started in 1935, and that was less than a year after the FCC was incorporated. They hadn't had their charter till like June of the year before, in '34. And originally, Missouri was in the 9th call district. They didn't have a 10th call district till 1946. And the locals that were 9 calls, which is, of course, Garnet Bryan, W at 9AZL, he ended up being W at 0AZL. And Garnet used to work down at Radio and TV Supply down there by that. And I remember one time looking through an old QST magazine from the mid-'60s, and so he had some Valiant car, like, I don't know, 60-some early Valiant, Plymouth Valiant, and he had a big old, like, some 6-meter loop antenna mounted on the trunk back there. It looked like it was in the shape of, like, a, I don't know, flower or something like that, shamrock or something, I don't know. It's a pretty bizarre-looking deal. Anyway, Garnet, he's quite the character. He had a lot of stuff and everything, and he used to live over like 12th and Washington, and he lived up out there at 28th and Grand. And in fact, his old house is back up in there to the east there. It's just a little driveway kind of runs up there. And you probably still see that windmill tower he had, his tri-band beam on it. And Mark, WB0H, bought all that stuff from him when he passed. Talking about some of the earlier members of the club, Jeff brought up the dentist that he couldn't remember to call. That was Ben Klein, W0CHO, Charlie Hotel Oscar. He lived out on the, I don't know, probably about, 1400 block of West 14th, something like that. And he talked a lot to W0OHC, Nick Patterson, who was a local contractor and stuff, lived out in South Kentucky. And another member was Alice, W0ZOF, from out in Clifton City. Gladys was the Morse code queen. They clocked her one time at like, I think Jim told me it's like 58 words a minute receiving. And she could send like way more than that, obviously, because it's a lot easier to send than receive, because you know what you're sending, you don't know what you're receiving. But Alice was totally blind. And so that's how she communicated. She was on every day. Sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, she was needing a new antenna. She liked 40 meters, and hers had fallen down. So me and Jim, WB0FRX at the time, Jim, W0FRX, we built a full wave Delta loop antenna, went out and strung it up for her. She was just happier than heck. But yeah, those people were some of the old timers here for sure. Also, the repeater had the call sign at W0EMW on it for a long time, Greg's call sign. Of course, when he passed, they changed it to whatever it was at that time. And but this is on the tower out there, the 500-foot Cablevision tower out there on Sacagawea Road. Well, it lost one of the guy wires in like February of 90 or 91, and it come collapsing down. Big ice storm took her down, and so we replaced it with a 400-foot tower, and that's when we got with Ray Pouts, N0RP, who was the head of the cable company here, and the one in Warrensburg. And so Ray said, yeah, sure, put it on the tower and stuff. He even gave us the coax and everything to do it with. A lot of y'all may know his wife, Katie. She's still active on the Warrensburg repeater at W0KTE, I believe her call sign is now. Also, the 220 repeater, we put that up out there, I think about 91, something like that. And then I ended up moving to Kansas City. It originally had my call sign on. I just dumped it in Jeff's lap, and he took off running with it, made it a lot better than it ever was. I know there's a few times in there when it wasn't on, but that's just the way it goes in that world. And it used to be a 6-meter repeater at W0JSI, Dave, down at Mora had. It was right there at County Line Road to the west, about maybe an eighth of a mile. You might even still see that little tower down there. County Line Road, the gravel road off of U Highway there. N0EE. Also, the thing was kind of an odd deal. In Kansas City, you used to have this club, the Podunk Happy Dunkers, the PhD Club. and they would sponsor big ham. They had 3-day ham fest up there. It was really, really awesome. But the guy that kind of ran it, his name and call really don't matter, but he ruled that place with an iron fist. You didn't do nothing without him. Nothing. Even at the ham fest. He retired military drill sergeant, I think, Marine drill sergeant. So he kind of expected everybody to live that world. But anyway, on the Monday nights, he had their net up there. Well, they had it on 14643, which is the input of the repeater here, which is a legitimate simplex frequency. So we turned the repeater off down here so he wouldn't interfere. This is long before CTCS tones were common. Most people still had crystal rigs, actually, and stuff. But he had two 11-element Yagis aimed right down here at 70 feet. He knew he was doing this because people up there talked about it too. They didn't like it either. So we kind of had a little battle ongoing up there, between them, So we get on down here and just talk like we're on the repeater, and he'd yell at us like we're interfering with him, and he's yelling at us like we're interfering with him, So it's a pretty odd deal there, But yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff go through this town, radio, and a lot of people and stuff, and sure had a lot of good time with it, and I do remember one time had a fare station. I forget the call sign of it. It's out there in the Varied Industries building, right there by the main drag where you come out of the racetrack there on the left. Had a tower sitting there, and I remember they had a station in there, sponsored by the Sedati Club, and maybe a few others as well. But I remember Mark, that would be 0H, and Brooks, K0JWA, ended up buying that stuff and took it all down. We went out there and took it all down one day. But there have been a lot of changes around here, and glad to have enjoyed a lot. And 0EE.
WA0 SDO repeater.
All right, John. Well, thank you. That's do you remember, that's a lot of information there, and that's a lot of history that you covered there, and a lot of really cool experiences and stories, for sure. Can you remember, can you give us a little more detail on that fairground station, or if Brooks is listening, maybe he can hop in there, but do you remember the reason for it? Did they only operate during the fair as kind of a special event covering the fair, or what was the kind of the premise behind it, or do you remember?
0EE. It was just during the fair, and they had the tower set up right by the doors to the west of the north doors there, and then the station itself was set up back in what would be like the northwest corner of the building. Of course, at the time, they had radiograms, and there you go in there, yes, okay, Grandma Becky says hi from the Missouri State Fair and things like that. And I just forget what the call sign was. It seemed like, I want to say MSS something, but I don't really recall. I used to have one years and years ago, but they had a tri-band beam up out there, and if you had a license at the time, you could operate it, But I never did any of that, but I don't know if Brooks or Martin did. They'd be able to tell you that a little bit, but it seems like it was mostly sponsored by the local club, but I'm not sure if other clubs from the city or anything had anything to do with it. And 0EE.
All right, John. Well, we appreciate everything and the information there. And I like I said, I'd heard of that station out there. I know you and Brooks have both told me that where it was at, right there, just on the north side or on the west side of that building there, and right there by McKinney's Chicken, kind of right there. And would have liked to have seen that running. And really, at some point, that'd be neat. Probably never be able to get one back in there, but it would be fun to have a little special event station in there we could work during the fair. It'd be a lot of fun. But guys, I want to thank you, John, and thank you for your contributions as well that you bring to the club with the testing and the formatting and being the liaison and all the hard work that you do for that. That's not an easy thing you do. And for those that are listening, just while we're here, if you do know people that test, please go directly to John. He is our contact for testing. He is the individual that kind of is in charge of all portions of that, and then he lets me know, and then we'll together we'll work up and get some VEs and get the test done there. So just so you know, just a little plug there on that, because we've had some inquiries recently, and if you have inquiries, please refer them to John. His emails is very easy to get. It's his call sign at Juno, I think .com. But anyway, enough with that, and moving on. So Steve, KF0SJG, what's happening? And glad to have you as part of our net tonight on the 85th anniversary birthday party here. So this is W0VK.
Say happy birthday to the club, and I haven't been in it very long, just a little over a year, but met a whole bunch of great people, and I've had a great time with this. So special thanks to Dennis KY0Peeve. He's the one that talked me into getting the license, and have no regrets about it. I'd like to give a thank you to Doc, the W3MEB. He's given me a lot of help and advice and things with it. Without those two, and of course everyone else has helped, I'd really be more lost than I am now. That's about all I've got. Just want to say thank you to everyone and happy birthday to the club. So back to you, Ned.
KF0SJG, W0VK. Steve, we're glad to have you. Glad to have you as part of the group. You know, each individual member brings something of their own to the club, and we're glad to have you there as well as you know, being part of it. So, and yeah, those guys that you mentioned, they are great guys and good ambassadors of our club and membership and getting folks Elmered and all the above, to be honest with you. So you know, they selected a good one and got you enrolled there and got you recruited. So we're glad to have you there, Steve. So thank you very much, and you know, we're always here to help you any way we can. And you have had the most bizarre antenna situation that I have honestly ever seen there. But I think you got a plan and kind of got it worked out, and glad you do, because you sound real good tonight. So good talking to you, Steve, and we'll move on to Doc, W3MEB, the man that has been around radio a long time. Doc, tell us a little bit about kind of the startings of radio with you and some of the things that you have worked through. I know you haven't been in Sedalia area forever, but you've been affiliated with radio for a very long time. And maybe talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff that you've been doing recently. I think everybody would be interested in hearing some of the brave things that you've been enduring here on the recent things here. So, Doc, I'm going to turn it over to you, W3MEB. This is W0VK.
Well, thank you very much, Brett, and I want to say happy birthday to the club itself and all the wonderful members that have sustained over the years to keep it going and really making it what it is. Didn't really know an awful lot about it when I first got here, and wasn't really active on anything other than 2 meters, and you know, that was just passive at that particular point. That and packet and 8 parts. But a little history started off back in the mid-'60s. When I actually took a novice examination. And that was sort of an interesting feat right there when I was going through high school. And of course then I joined the military and dabbled with it all through the military. I spent some time down in the West Indies where I actually got a VP sign. I was VP5SC for a while working HF down there, and it was pretty good. That was the only place on the island, and it was a lot of fun down there in Grand Turk. I've been involved in emergency communications since the early 70s and done a lot of it. My recent exploits are with FEMA, where I'm a reservist and provide communications and internet access to people out in emergency situations such as hurricanes, disaster recoveries, and everything else. Well, just the past 2.5 months, or actually a month and a half, I was gone for 45 days. I was fortunate enough to be able to go and help out the folks in New Jersey. And I worked at the Emergency Operations Center and provided them with satellite communications and also internet operability, and got to talk to a lot of the local hams up there on their 2 meters. Pretty much enjoyed myself. You said the word brave, and I appreciate that word, but I tell you what, there are a lot of people out there that are giving of themselves to help others, and whether they're brave or not, they're out there doing for others, and that's pretty much what I've sustained myself to do. But in reference to the club, I would not have joined this club had it not been for SJG and KY0P. I saw them starting to get interested into it, and it sparked me off, and good Lord, you know, I went from having just 1 or 2 radios to building a complete shack and just enjoying the heck out of myself every time. And it's been an honor to be able to watch new hams come in, became a VE, and we've seen a few, and I hope to see a lot more, and that's what we're pushing for. But the club itself is a great group of people from many different walks of life, some radio experts, some just experts, you know, enjoying themselves and having a good time. So that's pretty much all I've been doing, and just enjoy being around and hope to stay around for a while. Back to you, W3MEB.
WA0 STO repeater.
W3MEB, W0VK. Well, Mark, we're glad you made it back safely, and you know we're always interested in the you know the things that you do, and glad you're part of the club. You know you bring a lot of things to the club. You know, of course you got your VE things, and you've got your Elmering, and I think you're on one of our new member packet. As an Elmer there, and just, you know, those services to other members is huge. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, a lot of caring and giving, and that's what hams do. You know, hams help hams, and we try to encourage and, you know, empower people and build confidence to get them on the radio, and after they do that, they typically kind of grow their wings and fly, but it's that initial thing, they need a little encouragement, and that's something that I found with this club. There's a lot of encouragement amongst new members, and you know, it just makes it a lot of fun. So, glad you're back, and glad to have you as part of the crew here, Doc. So, thank you very much, W3MEB. Moving on to Bob, KE0CYR. Hope you're still in there, Bob, and not dozing off. But you know, we usually get an in and out of you, Bob, because I know you're working and you put in a lot of hours, and we're glad you're part of the Rag 2 Net tonight here on the 85th birthday of the Sedalia Club. Please come now, Bob.
Well, I guess the first thing to say is happy birthday, because that's quite an accomplishment for this club. Anyway, I've been laid off now, I don't know, going on 9 weeks or something like that. It's been pretty bad. The main reason I always call in and out is because I'm very busy with groups throughout the state of Missouri. I'm an officer in many groups. But anyway, so I'm still with them at that time, so it's kind of like I'm in a meeting or whatever. But anyway, I wish I could be more involved, but the groups really use up my time. But anyway, I've started playing with radios when I was getting my degree in electronics back like 1969, 1970. But that did not give me my license because that marriage thing came along right after I graduated. And then right after that, I became a single parent with a 3-year-old daughter, so that kind of stopped that also. But anyway, I'm here. I don't know how many years I've had my license now, maybe 5, I don't know, something like that. Really glad to have it. Really glad to be with you guys, because there's some very good people within this group. There's so many that are so willing to help out with any problems we have. I can't believe the amount of time that people are willing to put into things, because usually people are not interested in helping. Anyway, I need to get off here. All I can do is say 73, and I'm going to let it go, and I appreciate being a member of this group. Thank you.
Bob, we're definitely glad to have you, and just always know you're part of the group here, and we appreciate it, and glad to have you in there. So and definitely glad to have you as part of the net tonight. You, like I said, usually the in and out thing, and it's fun, but it's always nice to hear your voice and hear you talk a little bit. So thank you for that, and we're thinking about you there, with your your laid off status there. So hopefully we can get you back to work, or they can get you back called in there sometime soon, and we're hoping for that for you. Well, guys, that brings me to the bottom of the list, and I'd like to open this thing back up. I know there's probably some folks out there that would like to join in or get in here on the count for the 85th birthday of the Sedalia Club. We'd love to have you. Any station, anywhere, please check in now. Call W0VK.
W0VK, WA0WY.
All right, well, I got you in there, Steve. Hopefully there'll be a few more that hop in here. Steve, I know you've been around a long time, and tell us a little bit about the progressive you've seen with the club, and just what you know a little bit about ham radio and radio in general, and just talk to us about some stuff. W0VK.
Well, Brett, I don't know a whole lot. I moved back here in 1975, and right around that time I joined the club here in Sedalia. I have to let up on this key every little bit because my finals will burn up on me if I don't. Anyhow, when I was in Pleasant Hill, I was a member of what they called at that time a civil defense, and it went through storm training and all that stuff up there, and spent a lot of nights out in the dark looking for tornadoes. Oh my gosh, what a time. Anyway, back to you, Brett. W0 or K0VK. WA0WY.
All right, Steve, WA0WUY, W0VK. You know, Steve, and when was it that you moved here to the Sedalia area? I know it was there, and can you tell me a little bit about that call sign you've got there? And where were you living when you got your call?
I moved to Sedalia from Pleasant Hill. The call sign I got's the original one I got when I passed the general class license and the novice. Of course, it was a different call, but when I passed my general, I got this call. I've had it ever since.
Right, well, it's a good call, and it's got you can look at it and you can see that call's got some age on it. It's not a newer style call, and it tells me you got some experience and been around a long time there. And we're just talking to you the other day about your offset dipole there, and we'll have to talk about that again sometime, and maybe that might be a good topic for one of the Sunday morning Ragtube Nets roundtables that we got going there, and get a lot of good ideas and stuff on that. So, Steve, you got anything else for us while you got the hammer down here?
Well, there was a guy by the name of Jim Keck and Jim Alcorn and Greg Hibbert in the club at the time I joined.
Okay, and when was it that you joined?
I'm sorry?
When was it that you joined the club here in Sedalia?
75, or thereabouts, give or take a year or so.
All right, and well, then hopefully you've been able to reminisce a little bit about some of the old days here with the knowledge that we've got. Have we pretty much summed up kind of as far as the mid-70s forward, kind of what's been going on here with the club. Can you think of anything else maybe you could add to it or that you might want to add?
Well, it sounded pretty much like it is. At the time I was in the club, I held a class on how to build a frequency counter. We designed the counter, cut the printed circuit boards, and put it together and made it work.
WA0 SDO repeater.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Sounds like a great idea and you know, a neat little project, you know, to do. And hopefully at some point they get us open back up, we can do some of those in-house projects and kind of keep some of that stuff going there. So we maybe have to be looking into you for some advice or some nice fun projects that are ham radio friendly there. So, well, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and move on, and just so you know, this is open. If somebody wants to recheck or come on in anytime, come on. And this is just about having fun here and communications and reminiscing a little bit about good old Sedalia, Missouri radio and ham radio in Sedalia there. So, is there any other station anywhere that would like to participate, like to get in there and just say hello, or just be part of the 85th birthday Rag Tune Net this evening? Please call W0VK.
W0VK, this is K0WAN, Matt here in Sedalia. K0KWA.
All right, we got some good ones there. Matt, talk to us a little bit about things you know, and you've been around radio for a long time as well, my friend, and glad to hear you in here. You're always welcome, and we certainly appreciate you hopping in here tonight. Please, floor is yours. Share what you like. You're more than welcome. W0VK.
All right, Brett. Well, yeah. Well, first off, I'd like to say the Cub is lucky to have you as the president, because you do a fine job. You've got that gift for gab, I guess it is, but you are in pulling the information out of people that they otherwise might not be willing to give out. But yeah, sounded great out there. I've been listening the whole time and getting some good information and some good history here, and hearing some old call signs and voices that I haven't heard for many a year. I'm going to reset here. But yeah, I first got my license back in '96. Haven't been real active over the years. Daryl Kimball, W1TXX, was my electronics instructor back in the late '80s, early '90s, and he was good, really good, and really got me motivated in the electronics. And then one day he dropped a copy of the ARRL handbook in my lap and said, "Here, take this home, it's yours." And man, that opened up some new horizons for me, and I got real interested in it, and I even bought the cassettes so I could start learning Morse code, and boy, I had other things going on at the time too, girls and whatnot, but I'll reset. But so I kind of struggled along with that for a little bit, and then I forget what year it was. They said, you know what, code's not a requirement anymore. I said, hey, I got this. So went ahead and got my tech class license at that point and held on to it for many years. Kind of played around with it a little off and on here and there, and then went and got my general, and then I hooked up with you guys and got my extra class there, and man, I tell you what, it's been a lot of fun. I do a lot more listening than I do talking, I think, and of course my job doesn't allow me to go to meetings or anything because I got to work all the time. But speaking of my job, I did work with KJ5ZW for many years there, and it's good to hear him on here tonight. Him and I, we've got some good stories. We used to be on call together, and sometimes big lightning storms come through and knock the cable out, we'd have to go out together and go try to put it back together. And a lot of late nights and thunderstorms with that guy. But he kept me kind of motivated throughout the years as well, and kind of trying to get me back into it and everything. And I eventually did when I had some time. So. And I hear you got Brooks coming up next too. He's been a friend of mine for a long time as well. So really good guy, and I've known a lot of good people over the years through this, and just had a lot of fun with it. Even though one of these days I hope to get a little more involved in it. But if nothing else, I'm always listening. So hey, I'll tell you, back to you, Brett, W0VK, and this is K0WAN.
All right, Matt. Well, I tell you what, K0WAN, W0VK. We're glad you're listening, and glad you're in there and staying current on the things we have going on. And it's neat to reflect back on. Each person that's talked tonight can reflect back to another member that has helped draw them in or has been in there. And that's what makes this a lot of fun. Is we're always recruiting. We're always looking for like-minded individuals that like to stay in there and continually grow and make our club what it is. And it is no accident that the club's 85 years old. That's for sure. It's had good sustaining members that have kept it going and have that passion and that belief to keep things happening there. So anyway, that's what it's all about, Matt. And we're definitely glad you hopped in here tonight, and would like to hear more out of you, and always know that you're more than always welcome to be part of anything we got going on here, ham radio related, and hope to talk to you again soon, my friend. So look forward to it. So I'm going to close with you, Matt, K0WAN, 80V, or sitting here looking at all these call signs, W0VK. It's time to turn it over to the big dog, Brooks, KA0JWA. He's another lifelong purebred radio guy, not a new kid on the block, and has done some really amazing things with radio. If you sit down and you listen to him, talk about some of the sideband on 2 meter and some of the stations he's worked and just some of the stuff there. So Brooks, without further ado, just talk to us a little bit about anything you want. We'll take her wherever you want to go. Turn it over to you, W0VK.
W0VK, K0JWA. Yeah, that's really cool. Just let me ramble here. I don't want to get started doing that. I was trying to think I had something I was going to comment on, and now you shook it right out of me there. But it's good to hear everybody on, and heard a few calls there. I haven't heard for a little while, so that's good too. In reference to, I took a few notes here. In reference to the station out of the fair, I believe that was there was a club out of Columbia that ran that. I don't think it was a local club here in town. I think it was out of Columbia. And I think they just, lost interest in it or something. I don't know, that they ended up selling everything a few years ago. Let's see. As far as the club names, I'm curious on that too, because Mark was stating it changed 3 times. But I remember at one point there being 2 club. You go for 2 club meetings. If you're in the repeater club, you stayed for the repeater club after the regular meeting. So at one point, I think there was an overlap at some time, but I couldn't tell you the years. But I don't know. Everybody else has covered everything pretty good. I don't know very much about it. My first recollection of the club was probably, I'm guessing, early 70s. I wasn't licensed or anything, but I did go to the field day. They had a military-style tent set up at the corner there at State Fair. And that was State Fair? No, Thompson. It was at Thompson and 16th there. where the college is now, but right there on the corner there was they had their field day set up there, and I remember wandering around there for a minute. But I didn't know what I was looking at the time, but I still, it left an impression with me. And I don't know, I can't really think of anything else that anybody hadn't already covered there.
WA0 SDO repeater.
KA0JWA, 0VK. Well, I tell you what, Brooks, whenever you were back starting out, and I know that Mark, WB0H, was around and affiliated, and I know a lot of the guys up here know him. And there was a group of you all back in the late 70s that were kind of running around, and I think you all did some, took your test and kind of competed back and forth. Can you tell us a little bit about, what got you interested in the ham radio? What was it to make you branch over from CB? Because like I said, that's where I grew up with. That's all I knew. I knew my dad went in there and my mom, and they both talked on CB and enjoyed it. And I never did. My older brother, he would get on there once in a while. He had a handle. I think his handle was Jungo Jim. Jungo Jim was his handle. It must my older brother. But Dad was kind of getting out of it by the time I was up and running. But anyway, if you just kind of maybe share because you've been doing this for so long, what got you into the ham radio stuff?
Well, I don't really know why I transitioned. I started off probably in 67 or 8, 67 maybe, 66 possibly, with a set of walkie-talkies. And then in 68, I think I upgraded to a real radio and got on Citizen Band and was there for probably, 10 years or so. And then changed, kind of started developing some interest in ham. And I'd listen on shortwave stuff, and I had a couple radios, and I got a receiver. Next thing you know, I had transmitters, and I thought, well, better get a license to use it, I guess. And I think in '79, Mark and I took our novice test from Tom Dara. Back in his shop, he was at the time a general could give novice tests, and he gave us our test, and we went kind of. I didn't do anything with it until incentive license, not the incentive license, but the VE program came in, probably in '82 or '83, I'm guessing, and then upgraded from there. Just started upgrading, just because everybody else was. But had a good time doing it.
Yeah, and what year was it when you and Paul got into the officer positions?
You make me think here. It'd been like 7 or 8 years ago. I forget what Paul said. I think he said he looked it up or remembered it or something there, but I think it's been about that long. I'd have to go back and look in the minutes of the meetings there, and probably given that exact date, but somewhere along the line, about probably 7 to 8 years.
Okay. Well, it's I always enjoy hanging out, after the club meeting or wherever, and listening to you and John Echo and Mark talk about how you guys kind of grew up together with it, and the friendly competitions of back and forth testing and challenging each other, and that's how I think you ended up in extras. Someone would upgrade and get a little more licensing and a little more allocation, and for sure you wasn't going to let your friend get ahead of you, and so you guys just kind of pushed each other and got you right up here, and now you're on the top of it, and it's just neat to see how that works out, and again, it's always following back to good people motivate good people, and it makes it fun, and it's just a neat club, a lot of dynamic, a lot of diversity there with age and experience that you know, it's really cool to have. So Brooks, I thank you for checking in here, and like I said, this is open deal. Come back in and feel free to talk, and we'll just keep this thing going as long as people want to, and whenever y'all want to shut her down, and then we'll shut her down. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and call and see if we got anybody else out there who'd like to hop in on the 85th birthday Rag and Chew Net. Please call W0VK.
Check.
Hey, go recheck.
Yeah, WA0WY. Hey, I was going to kind of go back a little bit in time. My Elmer that got me going in ham radio started out with spark gap generators, transmitters, I mean. And when he started, he didn't have to have a license. But they finally started making that a requirement. Anyway, that's one of the neatest guys I ever knew. W0QXT, and he's a silent key now. So is those other three gentlemen I mentioned. And sad to see them go away like that. But anyway, nothing you can do about that.
No, the only thing you can do is just remember the good times and smile about some of those things that you've experienced there. And you know, you mentioned spark gap, and there's very few folks around that probably even know what that is. You know, I'm kind of familiar with it a little bit just because I've just took a notion to research it a little bit, and I'm doing a lot of CW stuff right now. So, but spark gap is an earlier version of CW there, and it's pretty neat. It is pretty neat. If anybody's got any knowledge or want to talk about spark gap, please come now. Okay, well, I tell you what, thank you, Steve, for bringing that in there and sharing it. And is there any other station anywhere, any place anywhere with a desire to check in tonight? Please check in and give it a shot here. We're all here and having a good time tonight. Please call W0VK.
KE0UHO, Kilo Echo 0 Uniform Hotel Oscar. I've been listening tonight. Didn't know the club is that old. 85 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, Mike. And we're certainly glad you joined us. And you know, glad to have you, and glad to tested you not too long ago. So, do you have any questions, or we'd love to hear some comments from you if you've got something that you'd like to share with us. We're here and we're all open ears. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, W0VK.
Back in the 70s, Paul and I both worked at Radio Shack, and we got into CBs pretty heavy and had fun on those. And finally, Paul went ahead and got into the ham, and he kind of pushed me into it here a while back after we graduated from the fire department. So I got a radio. All I have to do is get that general license now.
It only took me 40 years to graduate from the fire department.
40 years. I did it in 38.
I'll tell you what, you guys, at least you graduated. You know, there's still some folks in session over there. So no, that's cool, and honestly, the bravery that you all have had, and glad you're with us and made it through out there without any big incidents and things like that. So we're glad to have you all in there. And Mike, you're one of our newer additions to the club there, and I tell you what, it's a pleasure to have you around. You're loyal. You come to our meetings, and you hop in on our nets, and that's what we want. you know, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that come and participate. You know, the participation's what keeps all this rolling here, and keeps clubs that last for 85 years. And you know, I think we got all that going. So, and we can certainly take care of that general as long as you do your part and you do the studying. We can hand out that general certificate right to you. All you got to do is pass the test. We'll be opening that up, you know, sometime, hopefully in the near future. But at this point, we don't have anything, you know, immediately, you know, scheduled, just because of the circumstances that are out there and the exposure. And you know, we've got a lot of wise individuals in this club, and we don't see any point in getting folks exposed to stuff and when it's not always necessary. You know, there'll be other testings around the corner there, and just keep studying. So, Mike, thank you very much for checking in. I'm going to open it back up. Anybody else anywhere, please check in now.
Recheck KY0P.
All right, Dennis, please come now.
Well, I know we've all talked a lot about Jim Keck, but I want to add one more story before we go here. Jim and my mom actually dated way back when. I never knew whether it was when they were in high school or whether they were that was after high school. But anyway, not that had anything at all to do with me getting into ham, because I wanted to be a ham radio operator from the time I was in high school. But anyway, I had gotten my tech license, and I'd gotten back then after tech you did a Tech Plus, which was you had to do 5 words a minute code. And then I got my general, and so I bought I bought a HF rig, and so he came over to look at the rig that I bought. It was a used TS-140. And anyway, I was telling him how I was going to put that antenna up. I lived in a 2-story house over on South Carr at the time. And that was in the 1400 block of South Carr, 3 houses from 16th on the west side of the street. And anyway, Jim was probably, my mom was born in 21, so he was right about that age too. I don't remember how old he was when he died, but sure wish he was around to hear this, because man, the stories he could tell over the years. But anyway, he found out that I was going to put this antenna up on the house, and so he said, "Well, do you mind if I help you?" And I said, "Well, Jim, I'd love for you to help me, but do you really think that you can handle the ladder and everything?" "Well, yeah." He said, "Just one thing I asked: don't tell Mary Lou." Now, Mary Lou, of course, was his wife, and don't tell Mary Lou that I'm up here climbing on your house, because she'd just have a fit. So anyway, I said, "Jim, nobody will ever know that you were up on that, up helping me on that house." But I said, "Are you sure you want to do it?" And he insisted on doing that. So then when he went into a nursing home, when he went out to Sylvia, I was out visiting with him one day, and he said, "You know," he says, I'm going to sell some of my ham equipment, and he says, "I'm going to keep my 2 meter, but I think I'm going to sell everything else." So I ended up buying several things from him. I'm still using the ICOM 718 that I bought, and it came with an auto tuner and a switching power supply. So I got to purchase his equipment, and I still use it on a daily basis. So here's to you, Jim, and wish you were here to hear your memories of the ham club. So happy birthday, Spark, and back to you, Brett, KY0P.
All right, Dennis. Well, I tell you, that was another good memory there, and good recognition of Jim Keck and the kind of some of the things that he has done for this club here in the town. And about anybody that's been around very long at all has got a good story to talk about Jim, and that's been kind of fun. And you can't help but think that he was pretty instrumental in keeping this club rolling by just maybe formally, maybe informally mentoring a lot of folks and just keeping ham radio enthusiasts encouraged. And I know whenever I joined the club, he was one of the first to, I had the old call sign KD0USK, and he looked at me and goes, it would be nice if that was USA. And I said, yeah, it would. It sure would. And anyway, he was just a neat guy, and really wish he was still around and more folks could have met him. It also makes me think about somebody else that we lost. It's not been all that long ago, but Carl, W6BGK. And I'm just going to ask Paul, if you're still around, can you just talk to us a little bit about Carl? And we know that's a West Coast call sign, but can you just talk to us a little bit about Carl and how long he was around and some of the things that he was affiliated with around here at the Sedalia Club? Because when I joined, he was there every meeting and always a nice, pleasant guy. So, Paul, if you're still around, come now.
W0VK, KD0ETL. Okay, yeah, Carl was a good guy. He mentored me on a few things, and his wife asked me to take care of his radio equipment. Sold the biggest part of it. A lot of it was just little parts here and there and stuff, but most of it we sold. And I bought a few items myself. Several in the club bought several items that were his. So he was in the, if I'm right, I believe he's in the Marines, and he was stationed out in California. And he was a lot in big radio stuff. They had the 220 and 6-meter stuff out there at the base. In fact, he was telling me a story of getting in trouble for being on one of the military's towers, and he wasn't necessarily supposed to be that day. I mean, usually he got okayed, but he didn't ask the permission for this one time, and he got just a little tiniest bit of trouble. But that was all good. And the worst thing he hated is where he lived when he died. Is they had an HOA, and it was not able to have an antenna outside. That was the worst thing that he hated. He did have an antenna in the attic, but it didn't work the way he wanted it to. But he was a good guy and very knowledgeable, and had some interesting stories, and I can't remember them all, but a good guy, and we definitely missed him. He was a good friend with Jim too. Him and Jim went on several trips to meet some other hams in the area that were outside of Pettis County, and they'd take a ride here and there. So that's all I got at the moment, unless somebody asks a question. KD0ETL.
I'll hop in there. I remember Carl's truck was the first Tar Heel mobile HF that I had seen in that configuration, and I thought that was pretty interesting that he had that big Tar Heel there on that truck of his. And I remember everything he had was really clean, and that's right, I remember the Marines now, and that was probably why he was really always, everything was in line kind of guy. So neat guy there, and I just thought about him for a minute and thought, maybe we'd recognize him as well, being in there and being part of the club there. So guys, we're in here over an hour and a half, and just wanna hop in there one more time. Is there anybody that wants to squeeze in there and get a lick in on this conversation? Please come now. Call W0VK.
WA0 SDO repeater.
0EE.
Okay, John, hop in there, bud.
Just want to say, one of the members of our club at one time was one of the most eccentric people I've ever met, Wendell Fletcher, W0PEN. Look him up. Look up Fletcher Aviation on the internet, and it'll startle you what that guy did in his life. Amazing. I remember me and Jim Keck and his wife and WB0H went out to his two-day auction out there off HH up there, that big bed and breakfast place there. He was a big game hunter. He was a radio operator. He was a pilot. He did everything. He was a machinist, master machinist. I knew the guy actually quite well to a certain deal. I don't want to get into it, but look up Fletcher Aviation and you'll see what I'm talking about. He even sponsored Porsche race cars down in Brazil and stuff, a car race. Quite an eccentric old fella, but he was really sharp. And let me reset. And getting back to the 220 repeater, when we put the 220 repeater up, it was after the 500-foot tower fell down. I believe that was in, I'm thinking that was in 91, February 91, I think it was. Because we put the 2-meter repeater up on the 400-foot tower in October. And me and Mark, WB0H, spent 2 days installing the coax and the antenna on there because that was part of the deal. We had to clamp it as per regulation, which is every 3 feet down this 400-foot tower. Climbing that tower is not like climbing a ladder. You had no foot things. They're 3 feet apart rungs. Going up's not bad. Coming down, you better know where your feet or hands are because it's the last thing you're going to do. Anyway, part of the deal, like I said, is with Cablevision and Ray, N0RP, Silent Key now. He said, yeah, give us a coax and everything. We just came up with these little transformers put on the ends to make it go from 75 ohm coax to 50 ohm, which is no big deal. 75 meters, but up on VHF, UHF, it's definitely critical there. But he gave us all the coax we needed out there. But how do you get 400 feet of coax, 400 pounds of coax to the top of this tower? Me and Mark can't do it. Anyway, when they put the tower up, these are professional tower people. They slap everything on this thing and they start standing this stuff up. But they never put the cable for their hoist through the shiv up there at the top of the tower. So part of the deal, okay, we needed to use it, so okay, we'll put that up there. So me and Mark climbed up this tower, got that cable hooked up, got down to the bottom of it, hooked a dead man on it, which is like a 6-foot, or yeah, probably 6-foot piece of 6-inch well pipe full of concrete with some footsteps on it and some handles on it, and you strap yourself on, and that, we're down, I think Jeff, LRX, was pressing that button one time. That thing didn't have a lot of gear reduction to it. It's kind of weird buzzing up the inside of a 3-foot triangle at about 10 miles an hour. Once you got about 100 feet, there's no more bird crap, there's no spider webs, nothing, just wind. It'd be dead calm on the ground. 400 feet up, it's not calm in the slightest bit. Anyway, got all that up there that one day. Well, the next day, me and Mark spent all day long clamping that coax on that tower with all the clamps that Ray provided to us. And it was windy up there at the top. It was in October, I think it's October 23rd. For some reason, I remember that because somewhere around Mark's birthday, and his birthday's somewhere around there. And it was so windy at the top. Across the Sacagawea Road there, they had Pinky's Auto Sales. Well, junkyard is what it was. I'm sure a lot of people remember that. You know, it's windy, we're fumbling around, we got a bucket of these clamps and stuff, and you grab one, you know, try to get on, oh, dropped one. My gosh, that thing went probably halfway past his building down. I bet that thing went 1/8 of a mile away before it even got close to hitting the ground. These pretty good sized clamps. This is how windy it was up there. Me and Mark spent all day on that tower doing that, and tell you what, sitting up there on that tower at 400 feet, gave a whole different perspective of this town, the layout and everything. Because it didn't have Google Earth and things like that at the time, you know. So it was this very unique experience, and I really, really enjoyed it. But then once they decided to take that tower down, and the 2-meter repeater, I believe, was on it at the time. I think that's when they moved it on out there to Steve's. I could be wrong about that. And Brooks is probably was at Columbia. Central Missouri Radio Association, I think, did that. But I know today guys who go out there and operate as well. Other than that, that's pretty much about all I got in 0EE.
Yeah, that's great, John. In 0EE, W0VK. You know, and it just brought something to mind, you know, and you're talking about going through the things that you go through to hang the heliacs and the coax and all the stuff, get it up there, get your repeater up there, and do all that. Sometimes we take for granted, you know, the sheer device that we're using and talking on tonight that's enabled us to talk here for going on 2 hours here. Somebody has went up there and they've had to endure, you know, the pain and the suffering of putting that thing up there. And you know it wasn't on a nice, beautiful day, calm day, whenever that was all going on. You know, it is something to be grateful for. You know, and a club's only as good as its members, and it's only as good as its equipment. You know, because ham radio guys know they got to have good equipment that works, and we're very fortunate to have all of that. And this has been a great test on this repeater tonight. And, you know, it just makes me think and makes me grateful that somebody endured some pain putting all that stuff up there, and we're sitting here getting to enjoy it, and it's easy to kind of forget about that. But it sure is nice. So, John, thanks for sharing that with us, and that was something pretty good there. And so, guys, I'm going to go ahead and just start winding her down. You know, we've been on here for quite a while tonight, and I know there's some folks that are wanting to check out, and maybe I'm very grateful for the ones that are hanging in there and listening and have been part of this tonight, and even those that are listening that I know you're in there and you just haven't checked in. You know, we're grateful for you to spend your time listening to us tonight, and you know, being a part of our celebration here for 85 years of good old Sedalia here. And hopefully if they open this thing up, you know, a little while, we'll run us a special event station this year. You know, it's our 85th birthday all year, so we'll have time to get together and do that maybe later on, and if they don't, maybe we'll just set up a special event station and all work it from our home and have a printable certificate that they can just print off and have their own deal there. So that's some things I've had in my mind on kind of in the works there. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wind it down. We'll turn it over to the normal use of the repeater here, and not that we ever took control of it. It was always open for anybody that needed it. But I'm going to turn it over to let anybody else that wants to talk, wants to get in there and connect while we're here, feel free to do so. But at this point in time, at 8:52, I'm going to go ahead and start winding her down. We've had a great evening. I've certainly enjoyed talking with everybody and hearing and sharing and seeing the camaraderie amongst the folks here, and it's been a good time. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being part of the club and for having me and voting me in on the president deal. So hopefully we can continue to do some more fun stuff and stay with ham radio and make it fun. That's kind of what we're doing and what it's all about, and hopefully we can keep it that way. So I bid everybody a good night, and certainly enjoyed it, you all. So we'll talk to you soon, and 73, see you down the road. W0VK.
WA0 SDO repeater.